I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you angry, something that's been hidden in plain sight for years. Something about BlackRock that the financial establishment doesn't want you to understand. And once you see it, once you really grasp what's happening, you'll never look at the financial system the same way again. You see, most people think BlackRock is just another big investment company, just another Wall Street firm managing money for rich people and institutions. But that's not what BlackRock is, not even close. BlackRock is something far more powerful, far more connected, and far more dangerous to your financial future than you could possibly imagine. I've spent my entire adult life studying money, studying how the financial system really works, not how they teach it in school, but how it actually operates. And what I've discovered about BlackRock and its role in our economy, in our government, in our entire financial system, it's shocking. It's disturbing. And it's something every single person needs to understand right now. Because here's the thing. What happened during the pandemic in 2020, that wasn't incompetence. What's happening with inflation right now, that's not an accident. What's coming next with digital currencies and the complete surveillance of your financial life, that's not some random evolution of technology. It's all connected, and BlackRock is right at the center of it all. Now, before I go any further, let me be clear about something. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't deal in theories. I deal in facts. I deal in documents. I deal in what's actually happening versus what they tell you is happening. And the facts about BlackRock, they're more disturbing than any conspiracy theory could ever be. So let me start by explaining what BlackRock actually is. On the surface, BlackRock is an asset management company. They manage about $10 trillion in assets. Let me say that again, $10 trillion. That's more money than the entire GDP of every country on earth except the United States and China. They manage more money than the GDP of Japan, Germany, India, the UK, France, and Italy combined. But here's what most people don't understand. BlackRock doesn't just manage money. They don't just buy stocks and bonds for their clients. They have something far more powerful. They have a computer system called Aladdin. And Aladdin isn't just some fancy trading algorithm. Aladdin stands for Asset, Liability, and Debt and Derivatives Investment Network. And this system doesn't just manage BlackRock's $10 trillion. It's used by most of the major banks and financial institutions in the world. Through Aladdin, BlackRock has visibility into over $20 trillion in assets globally. They can see what everyone is buying, what everyone is selling, what risk everyone is taking. They have more information about the global financial system than any government, any central bank, any regulatory agency. They are the ultimate insider in a system that's supposed to prevent insiders from having unfair advantages. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so they have a lot of money and a powerful computer system. So what? Well, here's where it gets really interesting and really disturbing. In late 2019, just a few months before the pandemic hit, BlackRock wrote a paper. It was called Dealing with the Next Downturn. In this paper, they laid out a detailed plan for what the Federal Reserve should do in the next financial crisis. They said the Fed shouldn't just lower interest rates and do the normal stuff. They said the Fed needed to go direct. They needed to start buying corporate bonds, even junk bonds. They needed to essentially bail out corporations directly, bypassing the normal banking system. Now, when I first heard about this, I thought, well, that's interesting. BlackRock wrote a white paper with some ideas. Big deal. Lots of people write papers with policy recommendations. But then something extraordinary happened. In March of 2020, when the pandemic hit and the market started crashing, the Federal Reserve did something unprecedented. They didn't just lower interest rates. They didn't just do quantitative easing like they did in 2008. They implemented almost exactly, word for word, the plan that BlackRock had written just months earlier. And here's the kicker. The Fed hired BlackRock to actually implement the program. The Fed gave BlackRock the authority to buy corporate bonds on behalf of the Federal Reserve. So BlackRock wrote the plan, and then BlackRock was put in charge of executing the plan. They were essentially allowed to bail out whoever they wanted. including potentially their own clients, using Federal Reserve money. Now, was this incompetence? Was this just the Fed being so unprepared that they had to outsource to a private company? Or was this something else? Was this corruption at the highest level? Was this a transfer of power and wealth so blatant that if people really understood it, there would be riots in the streets? I'll let you decide. But here's what I know. In the year following the pandemic, we saw the largest transfer of wealth in human history. Trillions of dollars moved from the middle class and small businesses to the very top, to the billionaires, to the big corporations, to the people who own assets. And BlackRock, through their role with the Federal Reserve, had a front row seat, more than a front row seat. They were conducting the orchestra. Let me explain how this wealth transfer works, because this is crucial to understanding what's really happening. When the Fed prints money, when they create trillions of dollars out of thin air and pump it into the financial system, that money doesn't go to you and me. Not directly. It goes to the big banks. It goes to the corporations. It goes to buy bonds and stocks and other assets. So what happens? Asset prices go up. Stocks go up. Real estate goes up. Everything that rich people own goes up in price. But your salary doesn't go up at the same rate. Your wages don't keep pace. So if you're someone who lives paycheck to paycheck, if you don't own significant assets, you get crushed. Your cost of living goes up. Your groceries cost more. Your rent costs more, but your income stays flat. You get poorer in real terms. But if you're someone who owns a lot of stocks, a lot of real estate, a lot of assets, you get richer, much richer. This is the invisible wealth transfer. And it's not a bug in the system. It's a feature. It's designed this way. And companies like BlackRock, they understand this game better than anyone because they helped design it. Now, I want to talk about something else that BlackRock is involved in that should concern every single person: digital identity and digital currency. Because what's coming next is going to make what happened during the pandemic look like a warm-up. For years, there's been a push for what they call a regulated internet. They don't call it that publicly. They use terms like online safety, protecting children, fighting misinformation, but what they really mean is ending online privacy and anonymity. They want every single thing you do online tied to your identity, your government-issued ID linked to your internet access. Why? Control. If they know everything you read, everything you say, everything you buy, everyone you communicate with, they have complete control over you. They can monitor you. They can manipulate you. They can punish you for stepping out of line. It's the ultimate surveillance state, and it's being built right now under the guise of safety and security. And this ties directly into cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. Now, I love Bitcoin. I own Bitcoin. I've been recommending Bitcoin for years. But I'm very concerned about what's happening with Bitcoin right now, because BlackRock and the other big financial institutions, they're getting into Bitcoin in a big way. BlackRock recently got approval for a Bitcoin ETF, an exchange-traded fund that allows people to invest in Bitcoin without actually owning Bitcoin. And on the surface, people in the Bitcoin community celebrated this. They said, this is great. This means institutional adoption. This means Bitcoin is going mainstream. Prices will go up. But I'm not so sure. Because when BlackRock and these other institutions control Bitcoin through ETFs, they control a massive portion of the supply. And if they control the supply, they can manipulate the price. They can control access. They can work with governments to regulate it, to surveil it, to potentially even restrict it. Remember, these are the same institutions that have been trying to end financial privacy for years. They've been pushing to criminalize Bitcoin mixers, services that give you more financial privacy. They want to know every single Bitcoin transaction you make. They want to track every single dollar you spend. This isn't about freedom. This is about control. And here's what really concerns me. We're heading toward a collapse of the fiat money system. This is inevitable. It's a mathematical certainty. When you have a debt-based monetary system where you constantly print more money to service old debt, eventually the whole thing implodes. We saw this in Weimar Germany in the 1920s. We've seen it in Zimbabwe, in Venezuela, in Argentina. It happens over and over throughout history. The US dollar is going to collapse. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but it's coming. And when it does, when people lose faith in the dollar, they're going to rush into alternatives. Gold, silver, Bitcoin, real assets. And the powers that be, the central banks, the big financial institutions like BlackRock, they know this. They're preparing for it. They're positioning themselves to control what comes next. The question is, what comes next? What do these people want? What's their ideal scenario? And I'll tell you, their ideal scenario is a central bank digital currency. A programmable digital dollar where they can track every transaction you make, where they can control how you spend your money, where they can potentially even turn off your access to money if you do something they don't like. Imagine a world where your money has an expiration date, where if you don't spend it by a certain time, it disappears, where certain purchases are restricted, where if you say something online that the government doesn't like, they can freeze your bank account with the push of a button. No due process, no appeal, just instant financial punishment. Sound far-fetched? It's already happening in China with their social credit system, and it's coming here. The technology exists. The infrastructure is being built right now, and companies like BlackRock, they're right in the middle of it, working with governments, working with central banks, helping to design the system that will control all of us. Now, let me take you back to something I learned from Rich Dad. Rich Dad taught me that there are rules for the rich and rules for everyone else. The rich play by one set of rules. They use corporations, they use tax advantages, they use debt as a tool, they use information and access to build wealth. The poor and middle class play by a completely different set of rules. They work for money, they pay the highest taxes, they're told to save dollars that are losing value, they're kept in financial ignorance. What we're seeing now with BlackRock and the financial system is this dynamic on steroids. We're moving toward a neo-feudal society, a small upper class that owns everything, that controls everything, that makes all the rules, and a massive underclass that serves them, that has no privacy, no financial freedom, no real ownership of anything. And they're using technology to enforce this. Artificial intelligence, digital currencies, surveillance systems, programmable money, all of it designed to scale their control over billions of people. Because here's the thing, there are so many more of us than there are of them. The only way they can maintain their position at the top is through technology that allows a small number of people to control a massive population. This is why I see AI as largely a negative development. Not because AI itself is bad, but because the people programming it, the people deciding how it's used, they're the same people who want to control you. They're the same people who see you as a resource to be managed and exploited, not as a free human being with rights and dignity. Let me give you a specific example of how this plays out. In 2008, when the financial system collapsed, it was because of the banks. The big Wall Street banks had engaged in massive fraud, massive speculation, massive corruption. They created toxic mortgage-backed securities. They lied about the risks. They crashed the entire global economy. And what happened? They got bailed out. The government, using taxpayer money, bailed out the very institutions that caused the crisis. And the people were angry. They knew it was the banks. They knew it was Wall Street. There were protests. There was Occupy Wall Street. People were mad. So if you're the banks, if you're BlackRock and JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, and you know that another crisis is coming, and you know it's going to be your fault again because you've been doing the same things, the same reckless gambling, the same corruption, what do? How do you make sure that when the next collapse happens, people don't blame you? You engineer a different narrative. You find a different scapegoat. Maybe it's a cyber attack. Maybe it's a war. Maybe it's climate change. Maybe it's a pandemic. Whatever it is, you make sure that when the financial system explodes, people are looking somewhere else. They're scared of something else. They're blaming something else. And in the chaos, in the panic, you implement your solution, your digital currency, your surveillance system, your control grid. And people will accept it because they're scared, because they're desperate, because they don't understand what's really happening. Just like after September 11th, 2001, when people accepted the Patriot Act, accepted giving up their civil liberties, accepted unprecedented government surveillance, all in the name of security. All because they were afraid. That's coming again. A Cyber Patriot Act. Some event that creates enough fear and panic that people accept the end of financial privacy, the end of online anonymity, the end of freedom as we know it. And it won't be presented as tyranny. It will be presented as safety, as security, as progress, as protecting you from the bad guys. But the real bad guys, they're the ones implementing the system. They're the ones who crashed the economy in 2008 and got richer from it. They're the ones who printed trillions during the pandemic and transferred massive wealth to themselves. They're the ones who are building the digital prison that we're all walking into. Now, I know this sounds dark. I know it sounds pessimistic, but I'm not telling you this to depress you. I'm telling you this to wake you up. Because once you understand the game, once you see the system for what it really is, you can make better decisions. You can protect yourself. You can position yourself to not just survive what's coming, but to thrive. So what do? First, you need to understand that cash is trash. The dollar is being deliberately devalued. Your savings in the bank are losing purchasing power every single day. The inflation numbers they give you, 2%, 3%, those are lies. Real inflation is much higher. Your groceries, your gas, your rent, your health care, all of it is going up much faster than your wages. So you need to get out of dollars and into real assets. Gold, silver, Bitcoin, real estate, businesses, things that hold value when currency loses value. This is what Rich Dad taught me. The rich don't save dollars. They save gold. They save assets. They save things that produce cash flow. Second, you need to educate yourself about money. Real financial education, not the garbage they teach in school. Learn about how the Federal Reserve really works. Learn about fractional reserve banking. Learn about how taxes work, how the rich use corporations and legal structures to protect their wealth. Learn about cash flow versus capital gains. Learn about good debt versus bad debt. This education is your protection. The financial system is designed to keep you ignorant. They don't want you to understand how money really works, because if you did, you wouldn't accept the system. You'd opt out. You'd play by different rules. You'd build wealth instead of making them wealthy. Third, you need to own real Bitcoin, not an ETF. If BlackRock is buying Bitcoin through an ETF, if they're controlling the supply, you need to actually own your Bitcoin. Take custody of it. Hold your own keys. Don't let some institution hold it for you where they can track you, where they can potentially restrict your access, where they can use your Bitcoin for their own purposes. The whole point of Bitcoin was to be a decentralized, censorship-resistant, peer-to-peer form of money that no government or institution could control. But if you own it through an ETF, through BlackRock or anyone else, you've given up that advantage. You've put yourself back into the system you were trying to escape. Fourth, prepare for the collapse. I don't know when it's coming. It could be next year. It could be 5 years from now. It could be 10 years. But it's coming. The debt levels are unsustainable. The money printing is out of control. The financial system is more fragile than ever. When it collapses, and it will collapse, most people will be caught completely off guard. They'll lose their savings. They'll lose their jobs. They'll lose everything. But if you're prepared, if you've positioned yourself correctly, if you own real assets, if you have cash flow, if you have financial intelligence, you'll be fine, more than fine. You'll be able to buy assets at massive discounts while everyone else is panicking and selling. This is what I did in 2008. While everyone was scared, while people were losing their homes, I was buying real estate at 50 cents on the dollar. I was using debt, good debt, to acquire assets that generated cash flow. And I made a fortune. Not because I'm smarter than everyone else, but because I understood what was happening and I was prepared. Fifth, build alternative systems. Don't be completely dependent on the mainstream financial system. Have some cash outside of banks. Have gold and silver that you physically possess. Have Bitcoin that you control. Have skills that are valuable regardless of what currency people are using. Have relationships with other people who understand what's happening. Because when the system breaks down, when the digital currency is implemented, when the surveillance state is fully operational, there will still be ways to operate outside of it. There will still be parallel economies, parallel systems. But you need to start building those connections and capabilities now before you need them. Let me tell you something about power. Real power doesn't come from controlling people through force. Real power comes from controlling the information they have access to and the options they think they have. The financial elite, BlackRock, the big banks, the central banks, they don't need to put a gun to your head. They just need to control your access to money, control the information you receive about the economy, and control the options you think are available to you. And that's exactly what they're doing. They control the major media companies. So they control the narrative about the economy. They control the financial institutions. So they control your access to credit and banking services. They control the educational system. So they control what people learn about money. And now they're working to control the internet, control digital currency, control every aspect of your financial life. This is what BlackRock represents, not just a big investment company, but the nexus between government power and corporate power, the place where the financial elite and the political elite meet to divide up the spoils and plan the future that they want, not the future that's best for you and me. And here's what makes me angry. Most people don't even know this is happening. They go to work every day, they pay their taxes, they follow the rules, they trust the system. They believe that their government is looking out for them, that the Federal Reserve is protecting the economy, that companies like BlackRock are just neutral actors managing money for clients. They don't understand that the game is rigged, that the system is designed to transfer wealth from them to the people at the top, that inflation is a hidden tax, that bailouts are corporate welfare, that the money printing benefits the asset owners while destroying the savers, that their financial ignorance is deliberate, engineered, maintained by an education system that teaches them to be employees and consumers, but never teaches them to be investors and owners. This is why I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, not to get rich from book sales, though that's been nice, but to wake people up, to help them see that there's a different way, that you don't have to accept the path that's been laid out for you, that you can educate yourself, build wealth, achieve financial freedom, and opt out of a system that's designed to keep you poor. And what's happening with BlackRock, what's coming with digital currencies, and the surveillance state, this makes that education more important than ever. Because soon the walls will be higher, the control will be tighter, the options will be fewer. If you don't act now, while you still have some freedom, while you still have some choices, you may find yourself trapped in a system where escape is nearly impossible. I've studied history. I've studied how empires fall. I've studied how tyrannies rise. And there's always a pattern. The rulers consolidate power gradually. They take away freedom slowly, one small piece at a time, always in the name of safety or security or the greater good. They control the money supply, they control the information flow, they monitor the population, they punish dissent, and by the time people realize what's happened, by the time they understand that, they're no longer free. It's too late. The systems of control are too strong, the surveillance is too pervasive, the financial dependence is too complete. They're trapped. We're not there yet. We still have time, we still have options. But the window is closing. The infrastructure for total control is being built right now. BlackRock and companies like it are building it. The government is building it. The central banks are building it, and most people are walking right into it because they don't understand what's happening. So this is my message to you. Wake up, educate yourself, take control of your financial future. Don't trust the system, don't trust BlackRock, don't trust the Federal Reserve, don't trust the politicians who tell you they're helping you while they sell you out to the highest bidder. Trust yourself. Trust your ability to learn, to grow, to build wealth, to create freedom for yourself and your family, because that's all you really have control over. You can't change the system. You can't stop BlackRock. You can't stop the Federal Reserve from printing money, but you can change yourself. You can educate yourself. You can make better decisions. And when you do that, when you take responsibility for your own financial education and your own financial future, you become immune to their manipulations. You see through their lies. You understand their games. And you can play by your own rules, rules that benefit you instead of them. This is what financial intelligence is all about. Not just knowing how to make money, but understanding how the system works so you can protect yourself from it. Understanding that the rules are different for different people and choosing to play by the rules that benefit you. The financial elite, BlackRock, the big banks, they're not worried about the economy collapsing. They're not worried about inflation. They're not worried about debt. You know why? Because they understand how to profit from all of those things. They understand that in times of crisis, wealth doesn't disappear. It just transfers. And if you're positioned correctly, you can be on the receiving end of that transfer instead of the losing end. That's what happened in 2008. Trillions of dollars in wealth didn't vanish. It transferred from the middle class to the wealthy, from homeowners who lost their homes to investors who bought them cheap, from employees who lost their jobs to corporations who bought back their stock, from savers who earned nothing on their savings to speculators who made fortunes in the stock market. And it's going to happen again, probably bigger than before, because the bubbles are bigger, the debt is bigger, the money printing is bigger, the corruption is bigger. When it pops, the wealth transfer will be massive. And BlackRock, you can be sure, will be right there to profit from it, just like they did last time. So the question is, will you be on the side that profits or the side that loses? Will you be the person who understands what's happening and positions yourself accordingly? Or will you be the person who trusts the system, who believes what they tell you on the news, who keeps your money in the bank and watches it evaporate? The choice is yours. But you have to make it now. You have to educate yourself now. You have to take action now, because time is running out. The next crisis is coming. The digital control grid is being built. The wealth transfer is being engineered. And if you're not prepared, you're going to be on the wrong side of it. This is what they're hiding about BlackRock. Not that they're evil, though their actions certainly harm millions of people, but that they're playing a game that most people don't even know exists. A game where the rules are rigged, where the outcome is predetermined, where the house always wins. Unless you understand the game, unless you see through the illusion, unless you choose to play by different rules. That's my message. That's what I want you to understand. The system is designed to keep you poor and keep them rich. BlackRock is one of the key players in that system. They wrote the bailout plan. They executed the bailout plan. They profited from the bailout plan. And they're positioning themselves to do it again, even bigger next time. But you don't have to be a victim. You can be a victor. You can educate yourself. You can build wealth. You can achieve financial freedom. It's possible. I've done it. Millions of others have done it. And you can too. But only if you're willing to see the truth, accept the reality, and take action based on that reality instead of the comfortable lies that most people believe.